Howdy, hot shots. It's the Dividend Daddy, your favorite, not a financial advisor with not financial advice. And today we're talking all things XRP. All right. So XRP is a token that you can buy, a coin that has its own ledger. It's had a lot of SEC attention. It's got its own XRP army out there that's working to boost the price. And a lot of people think that XRP is going to $1,000 or $10,000, all kinds of outrageous price predictions that really aren't very realistic, because the market cap would have to be like the value of all the money in the whole world to get to some of the numbers that you see thrown around. Now, the reason they come up with these numbers is because they actually think that XRP is going to be utilized across the whole world for all of those financial transactions. I personally do not agree with that. I don't think it's likely. If it does happen, I'll be happy, because I do own a chunk of XRP, but I don't think that it's going to happen. I don't think all of the world banks and all of the governments and all of the regional banks and everything would embrace an outside currency like that and allow you and I to capitalize on all of the money that they transact. Do I think that it would be a faster, more secure, cheaper way than what they've been using? Yes, I do. It's very inexpensive to send cross-border payments with XRP. And so I could see companies like, maybe not Western Union, but a company like Western Union popping up where you can send money across borders and even inside the country or inside cities. I could see it where you would be able to convert your money to XRP on the spot, send that money over to the recipient, and they would be able to withdraw it in the currency that they are most accustomed to. So trading from US dollars to Japanese yen or something like that, I could see that easily being done with a coin like XRP that is so quick and so inexpensive to send. And I see a lot of value in that, and I think there's going to be companies that do pop up that capitalize on that. There's going to be also, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on the way that you want to look at it, there's going to be black market payments that are made utilizing XRP. We see this with Bitcoin already, but XRP is a much more superior product for that, because it's so much faster and it's so much less expensive. It's highly liquid, and so it's easy for them to convert the money anytime they want to. There's also potential for it to be used in tokenization type issues. So potentially, instead of buying a house and getting a title from the county, you would be able to just register it on the ledger, and then it would be a permanent record of the transactions for that property. And that could be done, people say it will be done with real estate. I still think the government's not going to let an outside coin come in and take over a market like that. But I could definitely see it being used in the place of art and collectibles for provenance and keeping track of where it came from, its authenticity, who's supposed to own it. I could even see it being utilized for something like firearms, because then you can just go on the ledger and see who it's supposed to be that's selling it to you, instead of just relying on the fact that the person that's selling it to you is the one that's supposed to have it to begin with. So I think that it could be useful in preventing theft. I think it could be useful in tracking down rightful owners. I think there's a lot of use case for it there. Additionally, it can be used for just NFTs. So those real world assets that you can tokenize are one use case, but then you just also have digital assets, right? There could be software companies that come out and say, we're going to register whoever owns our software on this particular ledger. And so then you should be able to utilize it on any computer anywhere in the world, utilizing this ownership token that you have on the XRP ledger. It's already being used for stablecoin. Ripple came out with its own US dollar stablecoin. And so that's going to add a lot of liquidity to the original XRP coin and the XRP ledger, and it's going to increase demand on the XRP ledger. Now, one of the big ways that XRP is going to increase in value is that a little tiny bit of it is burnt every time there's a transaction on its ledger. So all of these stable coins, the more popular they get, the bigger they are, and the more transactions take place on them, the quicker the number of outstanding XRP is going to diminish, and they're not making more XRP. Now, they do kind of flood the market with XRP because Ripple still owns a lot of it, and they've used it to pay for fighting their legal battles. They use it for advertising. They use it to bring brand partners on board, and so they do unlock this XRP, but when it's gone, it's gone. And so a lot of people think that it's going to go up to these insane numbers, and it very well may, but I think that's going to be a much longer term horizon. And there has to be a lot more activity on the Ripple chain in order to, because it's just a tiny bit of XRP that's burnt. So there has to be a ton of activity on there to burn enough of it that it drives up the price of XRP because there's less left than there was to begin with. That being said, we are coming into what is probably an altcoin season, and that's not guaranteed. And like I said, this is not financial advice, so don't go run out and buy it just because I said so. But a lot of times after Bitcoin has had the massive run that we've seen in the recent past, and then it starts to taper off, that money, instead of people investing in Bitcoin because they think its run is over, they start looking for other coins. Now, we've already had a big increase in value in XRP and ETH, and a lot of that money will flow to altcoins. But on the way, it will pick up these kind of smaller coins that surround Bitcoin alternatives. And so I could very easily see XRP going to $7 or $8 next year. So you could potentially triple money if you own XRP. If you don't own XRP, how you would get into it is going to be your choice as well. There's a few different ways that you can hold it. Now, personally, I just use Coinbase. And so I'll put a link down below. If you do want to buy it on Coinbase, then both you and I can get a little bit of a bonus if you buy it on there if you haven't had a Coinbase account before. And they have competitions where they like put you in raffles for different coins if you do enough trading on there. I don't do a lot of trading on there. I've done some in the past. If you do, before you go and buy and sell the coins, I would suggest that you go into the app and switch it to the Coinbase Pro because the commissions are a lot smaller. You could save yourself $30 or $40. But that's one of the biggest drawbacks to utilizing an exchange like Coinbase is that the commissions are still pretty high. I mean, back when I started trading stocks in 1999 or 2000, I was using Daytech and it was like $10 per trade, and that was like as cheap as I could find. It was $10 per trade. So you were $10 in the hole once you bought a stock before you could even break even. And then you had to make another $10 so that you could sell it and break even. So, if you were dealing with a small amount of money, like if you were just trying to buy $100 worth of stock, well, you were essentially 20% in the hole before you even started. And that's how it is right now, utilizing exchanges for cryptocurrencies. So Rex Shares came out with the first XRP ETF. Now we've seen like Grayscale is a Bitcoin ETF, and then there's companies that are acting as treasury companies like Bitmine, I think, has ETH, and MicroStrategy has Bitcoin. And so they accumulate and hold on to coins, and then people invest in them not only for the value that they offer in their treasury holdings, but they're investing in their strategies of accumulating more of those assets. And so there is potential for treasury companies to outperform individual coins, because not only are they gathering up the performance of the coin, but they're gathering up the performance of their strategy and accumulating additional coin faster than you would be able to if you just bought the coin yourself and were adding a little bit each month. An ETF doesn't hold the same advantages that I know of as a treasury company does. An ETF is essentially going to buy the asset and hold the asset for you, and they're going to act as custodians, and then you're going to pay them a fee for it. So I don't personally buy individual coin ETFs. That's not to say that there isn't a place for them in some people's portfolio, though. Some people just aren't comfortable going onto an exchange or and transacting in these coins in a company that they're not used to. They already have their brokerage. They're comfortable with their brokerage. They could just put money in and they can buy into an ETF, and they're comfortable with that. They're used to it. So that's one reason why they would want to do that. Another reason is for IRAs or tax-advantaged accounts. Maybe they don't have an IRA or a tax-advantaged account at a brokerage that holds coins, and so they want those tax benefits, and it's easier to do that with an ETF in your brokerage account where you already have an IRA. Another reason would be the cheap commissions. Like I can go and buy an ETF on Schwab. It doesn't cost me any commission. So essentially, if it goes up a couple pennies, I can sell it and profit without having to hold on to it and make up for these lost commissions. So if you're going to be trading in and out of it based on price, those ETFs could be a good trading vehicle because they're going to move, closely related to the underlying coin, but they're not going to be huge commissions in order to get in and out of it. Both of them have good liquidity. So I wouldn't say that an ETF is going to have better liquidity than the coin. However, if you decide to put your coin in cold storage, like you don't want to have it on an exchange because you're afraid that there's been a lot of crypto exchanges that collapsed. If you think the crypto exchange is too dangerous for you and you want to hold it in cold storage, you want to put it on your own device and hold it inside your house, then it's not very liquid. You're going to have to get that onto a brokerage somewhere. You're going to have to on-ramp it into a crypto exchange somehow and then sell it in order to get your money back out. So there's some liquidity advantages in ETFs versus cold storage. And so if you're too nervous to hold your coins on the exchange, and there may be an advantage to having an ETF instead of cold storage, but each one of these things has their own advantages. You can't take XRP out of an ETF wallet and send it to another wallet. If I want to take XRP and send it to anybody, I can just send it to their wallet address. So that's some liquidity that you get with an exchange. And if you have it in cold storage, you could even link it up to a swap website or something like that and send it that way. I don't have any in cold storage because it just really hasn't. I don't know. I did have an exchange collapse on me one time, but I knew that exchange was risky. I only had money in that exchange because I couldn't get the coin that I wanted on Coinbase. Typically, I just use Coinbase, and I've been pretty comfortable with them. They're a big company. That does not mean that they don't have their problems. It doesn't mean that they're not risky. So your brokerage is going to probably have SIPC insurance, that's going to insure your funds. I don't know that Coinbase actually has anything like that. But the big drawback that I see in having an ETF like this brand new Rex shares XRPR is the management fee. I can hold that coin and not have to pay a management fee, but if I'm holding the ETF, I got to pay 0.75%. So if I was trading in and out of it quickly, if I was analyzing the charts and I was trying to make day trades or swing trades, then I would probably deal in the ETF just for the cheap commissions. I don't have to pay any commission. If I'm going to hold it long term, I'm either going to keep it in the brokerage or I'm going to keep it in cold storage. Cold storage is probably the most secure when it comes to any kind of electronic attack or the broker losing your coins. But it also brings its own set of risks in that, I remember a story recently, I've seen it over the last several years, where a guy was paying millions of dollars trying to dig through a dump because he'd accidentally thrown away a hard drive that he was storing his Bitcoin on. Well, so your Bitcoin your wallet can be stolen, and if your keys are destroyed in a fire or something like that, you may not be able to recover those coins if you have them in cold storage. So everything has its own set of risks, but I would say that as far as any kind of third-party risk like that, the ETF does reduce those by quite a bit. Anybody who's like Rex is going to know how to store their coins in a way that is going to protect them and their customers. So I would put faith in Rex shares protecting those XRP tokens before really I put faith in Coinbase, because I've seen hacks and I've seen wallets get destroyed and stuff like that in these big brokerages. But that being said, I still just use Coinbase. So anyway, I wanted to talk about that Rex shares XRPR because I do think XRP has long-term potential. Now, it's very volatile. When I first bought XRP, I was paying above $1 for it. I got my cost average down to somewhere around 59 cents because I just kept buying it. Should have bought even more. Now it's up around $2.40, I think, last time I checked. I don't know. I look at a lot of prices, so sometimes they just get mixed up in my head. But it's under $3 right now. And like I said, I could easily see it tripling in the next run. Is it going to $1,000 a coin or $10,000 a coin? I hope so. I won't be talking to you anymore because me and Gag will just be sitting on a beach in Tahiti drinking Mai Tais and watching the waves roll in. if that kind of something happens, because I'll have big money. If it does go to $10,000 a coin, I will say that I hope it does it really, really fast, because I don't think I'm going to have the wherewithal to hold on to it when it hits $1,000 waiting for 10,000. So I just hope I wake up overnight and it's 10,000. And that's one of the things that I tell people about Bitcoin. People are like, man, I could have bought Bitcoin for a quarter back in 2009 or whatever. And I think about that myself. If I daydream, if I could time travel, boom, pop back into the past and buy myself $1,000 of Bitcoin and I'm set for life. But the reality is, if you did buy it for 25 cents, there's no way you'd be holding it today at $112,000. People don't have enough money to sit there and watch that kind of money go up and down. They don't have the risk tolerance. I know I don't. So if I bought something for a quarter and next thing I know it's worth $50, I'm going to be selling it, right? And maybe you scale out of it so you still have a little bit of it at a time. But the reality is, nobody that was unless you were already rich, and didn't need the money to begin with, if you bought it back when you could buy it for $5 a coin, you're probably not holding it for $112,000 today. Maybe you bought more of it because you saw it get adopted and you saw it, become mainstream, and so companies buying it and everything have encouraged you to buy back into it. But we all know the story of the guy that used like 20,000 Bitcoin to buy a pizza because it was a novelty to him. He was able to buy a pizza with it, and so it was exciting to him to get to use this new currency that was outside the system. And that shows you people's mentality when it comes to something like that. And I'm not berating the guy at all, because that's just how it is. Oh, I bought this for 3 cents and now I can buy a pizza for it. That sounds pretty dang good. There's no way in your mind that you're going to sit there and go, oh, this is going to be worth $100,000 a token someday. So anyway, the main reason I was on here was to talk about this Rex shares, this brand new, first of its kind XRP ETF. I think it is exciting. It'll increase demand for XRP. It'll increase adoption. It'll probably increase people who own XRP's value. And so I like that very much because I do own XRP. But is it a viable alternative to XRP itself? In certain cases, I think it would be. If any of you know of an advantage to an ETF over the actual coin that I haven't mentioned here, please list it down below. And until then, DGens, I'll talk to you later.